Chosen one. Why do you wake up at 3:17 a.m. with your heart pounding like a war drum? Why does your soul feel like it's being pulled towards something you can't name? Why does September feel different this year, heavier, more electric, like the very air is holding its breath? Here's the shocking truth they don't want you to know. You haven't been having sleepless nights, you've been having summons. Your restlessness isn't anxiety, it's anticipation. Your spirit has been receiving transmissions from the throne room of heaven, and September 28th and 29th are not just dates on your calendar. They are coordinates, they are doorways. They are the prophetic intersection where your destiny collides with divine timing. Listen to me carefully, beloved. What if I told you that every struggle you've endured, every tear you've cried, every night you've wondered if God forgot your address? What if all of it was preparation for these exact 48 hours? September 28th and 29th are not just another weekend. They are spiritual checkpoints that will decide destinies. They are a bridge suspended over fire, and you cannot cross casually. You cannot scroll past this moment. You cannot treat these days like ordinary time, because ordinary time just expired. The enemy has been working overtime to keep you distracted, to make you believe these are just random dates, just another turn of the calendar. But your spirit knows better, doesn't it? That stirring in your chest right now, that's not coincidence, that's confirmation. Heaven has been orchestrating this moment since before you took your first breath. Every closed door, every delayed breakthrough, every season of waiting, it was all leading to this prophetic convergence. Before we go deeper into this sacred revelation, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. But right now, if something in your spirit is already stirring, if you can feel the weight of these words settling into the deepest chambers of your heart, I need you to do something. Type I receive in the comments right now. Don't analyze it, don't hesitate. Just respond to what your spirit already knows. Because what I'm about to reveal about September 28th and 29th will shatter everything you thought you knew about God's timing, your calling, and the reason you're still here breathing on this earth. The countdown has already begun, chosen one. And ignoring these prophetic coordinates will cost you everything. Your summons has arrived. Why has your family carried the same generational curse for 70 years? Why do breakthrough moments slip through your fingers just when victory seems within reach? Why does it feel like you've been circling the same mountain your entire life, watching others enter their promised land while you remain in the wilderness? Because you haven't understood God's calendar. You've been living by human time when heaven operates on divine appointments. And September 28th and 29th are not random dates. They are prophetic coordinates that echo patterns the Almighty has used throughout history. Listen carefully, chosen one. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob doesn't operate in generalities. He operates in specifics. Passover wasn't sometime in spring, it was the exact 14th day of Nisan. Pentecost wasn't around summer, it was precisely 50 days after the resurrection. When Joshua marched around Jericho, it wasn't for about a week, it was exactly 7 days, with the walls falling on the 7th day at the 7th lap. Scripture declares in Ecclesiastes 3:1, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Not a time frame, not an era, a time. Singular, specific, divine. Your breakthrough has coordinates, beloved, and September 28th and 29th are yours. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. September 28th is what I call the filter day. It's the day when everything from your past makes one final attempt to reclaim you. Old relationships will resurface with convenient timing. Former habits will whisper seductive lies. past failures will parade themselves before your mind like a demonic slideshow, trying to convince you that nothing has really changed. But this isn't random spiritual warfare. This is strategic. The enemy knows that September 29th holds something so powerful, so transformative, that he's willing to deploy everything in his arsenal on the 28th to prevent you from reaching it. Think about it. When the children of Israel were finally ready to cross Jordan into the Promised Land, what happened on the last day in the wilderness? Every doubt, every fear, every voice that said maybe Egypt wasn't so bad came flooding back. The filter day always precedes the freedom day. September 29th mark. This date in your spirit is the ignition day. But here's where most believers miss it completely. This day won't feel like victory. It will feel like silence. Heavy, oppressive, almost suffocating silence. Your prayers will seem to echo in empty air. Your faith will feel paper thin. You might even question if God is still there. But this isn't spiritual darkness. This is divine compression. Remember Elijah on Mount Horeb? 1 Kings 19:11, 1-2 tells us that God wasn't in the earthquake, the wind, or the fire. He was in a still small voice. But before that voice came, there was a moment of complete stillness. A moment when all of creation held its breath. That's September 29th, chosen one. That's the bowstring being pulled back to its maximum tension before the arrow is released. You think God has gone quiet? He hasn't gone anywhere. He's loading the slingshot. This is why so many believers give up right before their breakthrough. They interpret the silence as abandonment when it's actually preparation for acceleration. They feel the heaviness and think they're failing when they're actually being pressurized for propulsion. David knew this pattern. Psalm 30:5 declares, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." That night isn't punishment, it's the pause before the promise, the silence before the shout, the compression before the explosion. But why these specific dates? Why September 28th and 29th? Because heaven operates on cycles, and you are entering the completion of a 7-year spiritual season. From 2017 to 2024, you've been in preparation, training, testing, refinement. But every biblical preparation season has an Exodus moment. Every wilderness has a Jordan River. Every captivity has a liberation day. September 29th is your liberation day. Here's what should terrify you. What if you treat these days like ordinary time? What if you scroll through social media instead of seeking heaven? What if you allow the noise of the world to drown out the whisper of eternity? What if you sleep through your spiritual alarm clock? Because here's the truth that's going to shake you to your core. September 29th doesn't just hold your breakthrough, it holds the prophecy that will alter the trajectory of 2026 itself. The decisions you make, the prayers you pray, the alignment you choose during these 48 hours will echo through the next 2 years of your life. You think I'm being dramatic? Look at Scripture. When Joshua crossed Jordan, it wasn't just about getting to the other side. Those 12 stones they took from the riverbed became a memorial for generations. One day of obedience became a testimony for centuries. Your September 29th isn't just about your personal breakthrough. It's about becoming a testimony for your bloodline. It's about setting a new spiritual precedent for your family tree. It's about breaking cycles that have held your ancestors captive for generations. Right now, angels are positioning themselves around these dates. Principalities are trembling at what God is about to release. The cloud of witnesses, your grandparents who prayed, your great-grandparents who believed, they're all leaning in from heaven, knowing that their prayers are about to be answered through your obedience. But time is running out. The spiritual window is already opening. The atmospheric pressure is already shifting. Can you feel it? That electricity in the air, that sense that something monumental is approaching. The question that will determine your destiny is this: will you recognize your appointed time, or will you let the most important 48 hours of your spiritual life slip by unnoticed? Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly what happens when heaven's timing collides with human preparation, and why missing this moment could cost you the very thing you've been praying for your entire life. I know you've asked the question that haunts every senior's heart at 2 a.m. God, has my time passed? I know you've sat in that empty house after the funeral, after the kids moved 3 states away, after the diagnosis changed everything, wondering if heaven forgot your address. You've carried weights that would crush younger souls, the mortgage payments that kept you awake for 30 years, the medical bills that devoured your retirement dreams, the prayers you've whispered for decades that seem to echo in empty air, the loneliness that sits in your chest like a stone, growing heavier with each birthday that passes unnoticed. But what if I told you something that will shatter every lie the enemy has whispered in your ear? What you thought was exhaustion was divine anesthesia. What you thought was depression was heaven rewiring your nervous system for supernatural capacity. What you thought was God's silence was Him holding His breath, waiting for the exact moment when your preparation would meet His purpose. Look at Job. The Bible says he was blameless and upright, yet Satan targeted him specifically. Why? Because hell saw what heaven had hidden: a man whose faith could withstand any storm. Job 1-8 records God saying, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him." That wasn't random suffering. That was strategic preparation. Every sleepless night you've endured wasn't insomnia. It was intercession. Every tear you've cried wasn't weakness. It was liquid gold being refined in the furnace of faithfulness. Every door that slammed in your face wasn't rejection. It was redirection toward September 28th and 29th. You think your arthritis is just aging? What if it's your body learning to bend without breaking under the weight of glory that's coming? You think your slower pace is limitation? What if it's heaven teaching you to move in divine timing instead of human urgency? Moses was 80 when God called him from the burning bush. 80. The world would have said he was past his prime, ready for the nursing home. But Exodus 7-7 tells us he was just getting started. Anna, the prophetess, was 84 when she recognized the Messiah in the temple. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. But here's what breaks my heart about your generation. You've been told to step aside, to make room for younger voices, to accept that your season of significance is over. The world has convinced you that gray hair means game over, that wrinkles mean worthless, that Medicare means meaningless. That's a demonic lie, designed to steal the very decade when your spiritual authority should be at its peak. Every financial struggle that should have destroyed you but didn't, that was building supernatural resilience. Every betrayal that should have made you bitter but left you compassionate, that was forging prophetic discernment. Every health scare that should have terrified you but deepened your trust, that was developing unshakable faith. Psalm 92-14 declares, "They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green, fresh and green. Not dried up, not forgotten, not finished." The Hebrew word for fresh here means full of sap, bursting with life, overflowing with purpose, loaded with divine potential. You've been asking why your prayers seem unanswered. But what if they haven't been ignored? What if they've been stored? Revelation 5-8 speaks of golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of God's holy people. Every desperate cry, every midnight plea, every whispered, "Help me," Jesus, has been collected in heaven's treasury, waiting for the appointed time of release. And that time is September 28th and 29th. The isolation you felt wasn't abandonment. It was preparation for a calling that requires someone who's learned to hear God's voice above the noise of the crowd. The financial pressure wasn't punishment. It was training for managing kingdom resources that would have corrupted you if they'd come sooner. The unanswered prayers weren't evidence of God's indifference. They were proof. He was preparing something so magnificent, it required decades of character development. Every trial was a tutorial. Every setback was a setup. Every delay was strategic positioning for these prophetic coordinates. But the enemy knows what's coming. He knows that when you finally understand the purpose behind your pain, when you realize your struggles were actually strength training, when you step into the authority your suffering has earned, hell itself will tremble. This is why he's been working overtime to convince you that you're finished. This is why depression whispers, "Give up," just when breakthrough is breaking through. This is why despair screams loudest right before deliverance arrives. Chosen ones, your pain was not punishment. It was preparation for September 28th and 29th. Every tear you've shed has watered the ground for a harvest you can't yet imagine. Every night you survived when quitting seemed easier has built spiritual muscle for the assignment that's about to be released. You are not too old. You are not too tired. You are not too broken. You are finally ready. If you're still breathing, if your heart is still beating, if something deep inside you is stirring as these words penetrate your spirit, then heaven is confirming what I'm declaring over your life right now. The same God who made Sarah laugh at 90, who used Moses at 80, who empowered Caleb at 85 to say, "Give me this mountain," that same God has been preparing you for a prophetic window that will make your past pain make perfect sense. Right now, I need you to break your agreement with despair. I need you to shatter the lie that your time has passed. Whisper it where you are, or type it in the comments. 3 simple words that will unlock everything heaven has been waiting to release. I'm still here. Because if you're still here, if you've survived everything hell threw at you, if you've endured what should have destroyed you, then September 28th and 29th aren't just approaching dates. They're approaching destiny. And what's about to be revealed about these prophetic coordinates will explain why you had to go through everything you went through to get to this moment. Listen to me, chosen one, because what I'm about to tell you about September 28th could save your soul from another decade of spiritual prison. This isn't just another day on your calendar. This is the filter day, the day when everything you think you want will be dangled in front of you like bait on a hook. September 28th is spiritually rigged, not by accident but by design. Heaven and hell both know what this day represents, and they're both positioning their pieces on the chessboard of your destiny. The question is, will you recognize the difference between a gift and a trap? Here's what's going to happen, and I need you to listen with every fiber of your being. On September 28th, your phone is going to buzz. That person who broke your heart 3 years ago, they're going to text you. That job opportunity you've been praying for, it's going to land in your inbox with perfect timing. That family member who cut you off, they're going to reach out with an olive branch that looks exactly like what you've been hoping for. But beloved, if it looks too convenient, if it arrives without you having to fight for it, if it feels like the universe is suddenly handing you everything on a silver platter, pause, because convenience is often the enemy's calling card. The Bible warns us in Proverbs 14:12. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. On September 28th, many paths will seem right. Many doors will seem like answered prayers. Many voices will sound like the voice of God. But discernment, dear one, discernment will be your lifeline. Think about Eve in the Garden of Eden. The serpent didn't offer her something obviously evil. He offered her something that looked good, something that seemed beneficial, something that appeared to be exactly what she needed. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eyes, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. Genesis 3-6. It looked like provision. It looked like enlightenment. It looked like progress. But it was regression wrapped in pretty packaging. That's September 28th. Chosen one. That's the trap that's being set for your soul. You've been praying for breakthrough, haven't you? You've been crying out for change, for movement, for something to shift in your favor. And the enemy knows this. He's been listening to your prayers, taking notes on your desperation, cataloging your deepest desires. And now he's about to use those very desires against you. Picture this. You're walking through a spiritual minefield, and someone offers you a golden chain as a gift. It's beautiful. It's valuable. It catches the light in all the right ways. But what they don't tell you is that beautiful golden chain. It's actually a leash, and the moment you put it on, you're not free. You're tethered, you're bound, you're trapped in golden bondage that looks like blessing but functions like bondage. That's what September 28th is offering, the unprepared, golden chains disguised as divine provision. Here's the brutal truth that's going to cut deep. You've been here before. That relationship that almost destroyed you. It didn't start with obvious red flags. It started with sweet texts, romantic gestures, and promises that sounded like prayers being answered. That job that sucked your soul dry. It didn't begin with abuse and overwork. It began with opportunity, with advancement, with what looked like divine favor. The enemy doesn't repeat his tactics because he's uncreative. He repeats them because they work, because we fall for the same beautiful lies wrapped in different packaging, because we mistake familiar comfort for divine confirmation. But not this time. Not if you're listening. Not if you understand what's really happening on September 28th. This day is not a reward for your faithfulness. It's not God finally deciding to bless you after years of waiting. September 28th is a filter. It's a spiritual examination. It's heaven's way of asking, are you ready for what I'm really preparing? Or are you still willing to settle for counterfeits? Pass this test, and you move forward into your true calling. Fail it, and you get locked back into the same cycles you've been praying to escape. Except now they're decorated with new wallpaper, new faces, new promises that sound different, but lead to the same dead ends. Jesus himself faced this test in the wilderness. After 40 days of fasting, when he was at his weakest, most vulnerable moment, Satan didn't offer him something obviously evil. He offered him bread when he was starving. He offered him power when he felt powerless. He offered him shortcuts when the journey seemed impossibly long. But Jesus recognized the trap. He understood that not every solution is salvation. Not every open door is divine direction. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Matthew 4:4. Jesus chose God's timing over immediate gratification. He chose the Father's plan over convenient alternatives. That's your test on September 28th, chosen one. Will you choose God's timing or your desperation? Will you choose His plan or the enemy's counterfeits? Here's what I need you to do, and this could be the most important instruction you ever receive. Before you say yes to anything on September 28th, pause. Before you answer that call, respond to that text, accept that offer, sign that paper, pause, ask yourself, would this be showing up if I hadn't already outgrown where I was? If it belongs in your future, it will wait for your readiness. If it's meant to be yours, it won't disappear when you take time to pray about it, to seek counsel, to test the spirit behind it. But if it withers under examination, if it pressures you to decide immediately, if it makes you feel guilty for hesitating, it was never yours to begin with. September 28th will reveal who you've become and who you're still willing to be. The question that will echo through eternity is this: will you finally trust God's timing, or will you grab the first thing that glitters? Because September 29th is coming, and what you choose on the 28th determines whether you enter it free or in chains. Dear chosen one, if you thought September 28th was intense, you have no idea what's coming on the 29th. Because while the 28th was about discernment, the 29th is about something far more mysterious, far more sacred, and infinitely more dangerous to your spiritual enemies. September 29th is Ignition Day. But here's what's going to shock you. It won't feel like ignition at all. It will feel like death. Listen to me very carefully, beloved. On September 29th, your energy field is going to go quiet. Not just quiet, silent. The momentum from recent days will seem to vanish. The urgency will fade like morning mist. Your body might feel like it's moving through molasses. Your mind may question if any of this spiritual awakening was real. You're going to feel tired, weighted, like invisible chains are wrapped around your ankles, your shoulders, your very soul. Your body will resist movement, your spirit will feel heavy. And here's what terrifies most believers. You might even question if God has left you, but don't you dare fear it. What you're experiencing isn't depression, beloved. It's not spiritual collapse. It's not God abandoning you in your hour of greatest need. What you're feeling is compression. Sacred compression. Heaven is performing surgery on your soul, and the anesthesia is kicking in. Think about this. When David faced Goliath, what did he do right before releasing that stone? He pulled the sling back. All the way back. For one terrifying moment, everything went still, silent. The armies watched, the giant mocked. But David understood something about divine timing that most believers miss entirely. The further back you pull, the more explosive the release. You are that stone right now, chosen one. You are being pulled back into what feels like emptiness, into what seems like void, but it's actually maximum compression. The bow of heaven is being drawn back with your life positioned as the arrow, and the tension you're feeling. That's not stagnation. That's preparation for velocity beyond anything you've ever experienced. Ecclesiastes 3:1 tells us, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." But what Solomon doesn't explicitly say is this: sometimes the season of purpose feels like the season of death. Sometimes the time of breakthrough disguises itself as the hour of burial. September 29th is your burial day, but not the kind that ends in a graveyard, the kind that ends in resurrection. Remember Lazarus, 4 days in the tomb, 4 days of silence, 4 days where everyone who loved him thought it was over. Mary and Martha wept, the disciples questioned, but Jesus was waiting for the perfect moment when hope seemed completely dead, because that's when resurrection has its greatest impact. You might feel like you're in that tomb right now, the stone rolled over your dreams, the grave clothes of doubt wrapped around your calling. But I need you to understand something that will shatter every fear trying to take root in your spirit. Your stillness is not your ending. Your silence is not your burial. Your heaviness is not your defeat. You are being positioned for the slingshot effect. Think about a rocket on the launch pad at Kennedy Space Center here in Florida. For hours it sits motionless, silent, heavy with fuel. To the untrained eye, it looks like nothing's happening. But inside that rocket, pressure is building. Systems are calibrating. Every component is being tested and retested. The stillness isn't stagnation, it's preparation for escape velocity. That's you on September 29th, beloved. You're not stuck, you're not broken, you're not forgotten. You are loaded with divine fuel, calibrated by the master engineer, and positioned for a launch that will carry you beyond every limitation that has defined your past. But here's where it gets dangerous. Here's where most chosen ones lose their way. On September 29th, something fragile will be birthed inside you. A knowing, a vision, a calling so clear it takes your breath away. And your first instinct, your very first instinct, will be to call someone, to share it, to explain what's happening, to seek validation for this divine download. Don't you dare. What God plants in you on September 29th is not ready for human ears. It's not prepared for human interpretation. It's not strong enough yet to survive human opinion. Your silence on September 29th is not suppression, beloved. It is encryption. When Mary received the angelic announcement that she would carry the Messiah, what did she do? Luke 2:19 tells us, "But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart." She didn't run to the neighbors. She didn't post on social media. She didn't call a prayer meeting. She guarded the sacred in silence until it was strong enough to be revealed. The enemy knows that premature exposure kills divine assignments before they can fully develop. He knows that when you speak too soon, you accidentally water down what heaven is trying to concentrate. He knows that some revelations lose their power the moment they're translated into human language. This is why your spirit will feel guarded on September 29th. Why you'll sense an invisible wall between you and your usual confidants. Why even your closest family members might feel distant. It's not rejection, it's protection. Heaven is building a cocoon around what's being birthed, so it can develop without interference. Your silence is not fear, chosen one, it's spiritual encryption. And what's being encrypted inside you will either change everything or be lost forever if you expose it too early. Job understood this mystery when he declared in Job 23:10, "But he knoweth the way that I take. When he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold." The trying wasn't punishment. It was purification. The pressure wasn't cruelty. It was preparation for purity. You're in the refining fire right now. Not to destroy you, but to prepare you for the weight of what's coming. And what's coming requires a version of you that can carry glory without breaking, authority without arrogance, power without corruption. September 29th is your final preparation day before the launch that changes everything. The question isn't whether you're ready. The question is, will you trust the process enough to guard what heaven is planting? If you can feel this truth settling into your bones, if your spirit recognizes the sacred surgery that's about to begin, write these 4 words in the comments. I will guard the spark. Because what ignites on September 30th will depend entirely on how well you protect what heaven plants on the 29th. Dear chosen one, what I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie the enemy has whispered about your timeline. For decades, you've been told your best days are behind you, that your season has passed, that God's greatest miracles are reserved for the young, the connected, the ones who got started early. But heaven operates on a different calendar than the world's expectations. September 28th and 29th aren't just dates circled on your kitchen calendar next to doctor's appointments and grocery runs. These are coordinates on your spiritual map, divine intersections where your earthly timeline collides with eternal purpose. Your yes and no on these days will echo into the next decade, reverberating through 2026, 2027, and beyond. Listen to what's really happening in the unseen realm. September 28th arrives as the loyalty test. Not the kind of loyalty the world understands, not allegiance to people who've disappointed you or systems that have failed you. This is about loyalty to the vision God planted in your spirit when you were 17, 37, 57 years old. The dream you buried under decades of responsibility, rejection, and what others called being realistic. On September 28th, that vision will resurface. It will knock on the door of your heart like an unexpected visitor you thought had died, and you'll face a choice that will define the next chapter of your existence. Will you open the door, or will you pretend you didn't hear the knock? But here's where it gets supernatural. September 29th doesn't come to test you, it comes to compress destiny. Think of it as divine acceleration, where 30 years of preparation gets condensed into supernatural momentum. Your spirit will feel the pressure, the weight, the intensity of decades of prayers finally aligning with heaven's perfect timing. Together, these 48 hours form the launch pad for everything God has been building in secret, not just for the next year, but for the next decade of your life. You want to know why you've felt so restless lately? Why sleep has been elusive? Why your spirit keeps stirring at ungodly hours? Because heaven has been downloading preparation codes into your consciousness. Your soul has been receiving pre-flight instructions for a journey you didn't even know you were taking. Look at Scripture, beloved. Look at the pattern God has established for his chosen vessels. Moses was 80 years old when he stood before Pharaoh and demanded freedom for an entire nation. 80. When the world would have put him in assisted living, God put a staff in his hand and said, "Now we begin the real work." For 4 decades, Moses thought he was finished, washed up, forgotten in the wilderness. But God was simply waiting for September 28th and 29th of Moses' life, the coordinates, when character met calling. Anna the prophetess was 84 years old, spending day and night in the temple when baby Jesus was brought for dedication. 84. She had been widowed after only 7 years of marriage, spending the next 77 years in prayer and fasting. The world saw an elderly woman. Heaven saw the guardian of the greatest prophecy in human history. She didn't miss her moment. Her moment was saved for when she was ready to handle its magnitude. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. 100. Sarah was 90, laughing at the impossibility until she held the promise in her arms. They had waited 25 years for this miracle, enduring decades of doubt, disappointment, and whispers from people who said their season had passed. But here's the revelation that will rock your world. Their greatest moments didn't come despite their age. They came because of it. God doesn't give his most precious assignments to the untested. He doesn't hand his deepest mysteries to those who haven't learned to wait, to trust, to remain faithful when the road gets long and the nights get dark. Your gray hair isn't evidence of decline, it's evidence of refinement. Your wrinkles aren't marks of aging, they're etchings of wisdom. Your slower pace isn't weakness, it's the measured walk of someone who finally knows where they're going. You think you've been waiting on God all these years. You think he forgot about the promises he whispered over your life in 1987, 1995, 2003. You think your dreams expired when your children grew up, when your spouse passed away, when the pink slip arrived, when the diagnosis came. Heaven was waiting on September 28th and 29th. God wasn't late with your breakthrough, he was right on schedule for your spiritual coordinates. Every closed door was protection from settling too early. Every delayed answer was preparation for receiving more than you originally asked for. Every season of silence was God fine-tuning your frequency to handle the amplification that's coming. You see, the enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your expiration date has passed. He's whispered that you missed your window, that God has moved on to younger, stronger vessels. But that's the biggest lie ever told to a chosen generation. Your window didn't close, it's been building pressure. Your season didn't end, it's been accumulating power. Your calling didn't die, it's been gestating, growing, preparing for a manifestation so powerful that when it arrives, even your doubters will have to bow their heads and say, "Surely the Lord has done this." September 28th and 29th represent the convergence point where your faithfulness meets God's fulfillment, where your endurance meets his elevation, where your tested character meets his trusted assignment. These aren't just dates, they are the coordinates where everything you've survived becomes everything you were destined to become. But here's the question that will determine your destiny. When these prophetic coordinates arrive, will you step into them with the authority of someone who knows their time has come? Or will you let fear convince you that you're too old, too late, too ordinary for such an extraordinary moment? Because what happens in the next 48 hours will determine whether you spend your remaining years as a survivor of your story or as the author of your greatest chapter. There's something the enemy doesn't want you to know about time, chosen one. Something the world has kept hidden from you for 70, 80, maybe 90 years of your life. You've been living by the wrong clock. You wake up, check your phone 7:23 a.m. You go to bed, glance at the nightstand 11:47 p.m. Seconds, minutes, hours ticking away like sand through an hourglass. But that's not the only timepiece running in your life. There's another clock, invisible to human eyes but thunderously loud in the spirit realm. Heaven's clock. And dear one, it doesn't tick like yours does. It doesn't run on coffee breaks and commercial interruptions. Heaven's clock runs on something far more precise, far more demanding. Tick, tock. Heaven's clock doesn't run on seconds, it runs on obedience. While you've been counting birthdays, God has been counting moments of surrender. While you've been marking anniversaries, heaven has been marking acts of faith. While you've been watching years slip by, wondering if your time has passed, the Almighty has been orchestrating the most precise spiritual synchronization your generation has ever witnessed. September 28th and 29th are not random dates circled in red on some cosmic calendar. They are coordinates. They are the exact moment when heaven's hidden timepiece clicks into perfect alignment with your earthly existence. But here's what will shake you to your core. This alignment only happens once in your lifetime. Think about the most intricate Swiss watch you've ever seen. Hundreds of microscopic gears, each one dependent on the others, each movement calculated to the fraction of a second. Now imagine that watch is the size of the universe, and you, chosen one, are one of those critical gears. For decades, you've been moving, shifting, preparing for this exact moment when all the pieces lock into place. Tick, tock. Heaven's clock doesn't run on seconds, it runs on obedience. But what happens when a gear refuses to turn? What happens when a piece of the divine mechanism says, "Not today, Lord. I'm too tired. I'm too old. I've been waiting too long." The entire clock stops. Not just for you, but for everyone connected to your calling, your children, your grandchildren, the stranger you'll never meet, who desperately needs the breakthrough only you can carry. Ecclesiastes 3:1 declares, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." But most people read that verse and think it's about patience, about waiting, about accepting whatever comes when it comes. That's not what Solomon was revealing. He was exposing the terrifying precision of divine timing. There is a time for every purpose, not multiple times, not endless chances. A time, singular, specific, unmissable. And for you, chosen one, September 28th and 29th represent that time. Your entire life has been moving toward these 48 hours. Every heartbreak that didn't break you, every financial struggle that didn't destroy you, every health scare that didn't claim you, every rejection that didn't stop you. It was all preparation, all positioning, all divine choreography leading to this moment when heaven says, "Now, this is your time, this is your click." But here's the part that should terrify and exhilarate you simultaneously. You can miss it, not because God doesn't love you, not because you're unworthy, but because heaven's clock demands something your flesh wants to resist. Immediate obedience. Tick, tock. Heaven's clock doesn't run on seconds, it runs on obedience. In Haggai 1-2, the Lord speaks through his prophet. "This people say, the time has not come, the time that the Lord's house should be built." Do you hear the tragedy in those words? God's people, his chosen ones, standing before their divine moment and saying, "Not yet, Lord, the timing isn't right, we're not ready. Maybe next year. Maybe when we're younger. Maybe when we're older. Maybe when the circumstances are perfect." And what was God's response? Verse 11, "And I called for a drought on the land." The blessing didn't wait, the opportunity didn't pause. The window closed, and what could have been a season of abundance became a season of scarcity. You think you have time to process this. You think you can sleep on it, pray about it, discuss it with friends who will inevitably talk you out of it. But September 28th and 29th are not waiting for your comfort level. They're not adjusting to your schedule. They're not pausing for your fear. These dates are cosmic coordinates, and when the universe clicks into alignment, it doesn't send a second invitation. Right now, as these words penetrate your spirit, something ancient is stirring in your chest. You can feel it, can't you? That restlessness you've carried for months, maybe years. That sense that something monumental is approaching. That's not your imagination. That's your spirit responding to heaven's clock ticking toward your appointed hour. Tick, tock. Heaven's clock doesn't run on seconds. It runs on obedience. You are not late, beloved. Despite every voice that has told you your time has passed, despite every mirror that shows you wrinkles and gray hair, despite every young person who has dismissed your dreams as outdated, you are not late. You are right on time. But only if you step through these 2 days with eyes wide open, heart surrendered, and will aligned with the Almighty's timing. The gears are moving. The mechanism is engaging. The click is coming. Will you be in position when it arrives, or will you be standing on the sidelines, watching your moment pass by like a train you were too afraid to board? If something in your spirit is confirming that this message is for you, if you can feel heaven's clock ticking in rhythm with your heartbeat, then seal your decision right now. Type "I choose alignment" in the comments. Not as a casual response, but as an act of surrender, a declaration that you will not let fear rob you of your appointed time. Because what's about to unfold in these prophetic coordinates will either catapult you into your destiny or seal you into a cycle of regret that echoes through eternity. The choice is yours, chosen one. But the clock, heaven's clock, doesn't wait for anyone, and it's about to strike your hour. Listen to me, chosen one. September 29th is coming for your voice. Not to take it, to test it. You're going to feel the fire rising in your chest. The desperate urge to explain yourself, to defend your choices, to justify why you've been pulling away from people who drain your spirit, to make them understand why you can't go back to the version of yourself that made everyone else comfortable. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your silence is not surrender, it's encryption. Think about Jesus before Pilate. Matthew 27-14 tells us, "But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. The Son of God, who could have spoken worlds into existence, chose silence, not because he was weak, because he was wise. He understood that some moments require the power of restraint, not the noise of explanation. Dear friend, you're 70, 75, maybe 80 years old. You've earned the right to speak. You've survived enough storms to have opinions. You've buried enough dreams to know what matters. But September 29th is asking you to do something that will feel unnatural. Hold your tongue when your truth is burning to be spoken. Your family is going to mock you. There goes mom again with her spiritual stuff. Your neighbors will whisper. Have you noticed how strange she's gotten lately? Your own children might sit you down for one of those conversations. We're worried about you. You're acting different. Maybe you should talk to someone. And every cell in your body will scream to defend yourself, to prove you're not losing your mind, to make them see what you see, feel what you feel, understand what God has been downloading into your spirit in the quiet hours of the morning. But listen to me carefully. Your silence here is not weakness, it's weaponry. A warrior who draws his sword too early dulls its edge. A prophet who speaks before the appointed hour dilutes the message. A chosen one who explains their transformation before it's complete aborts the very process God is trying to birth through them. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Until the appointed hour. Do you remember when Mary received the angel's message? Luke 1:29 says she was greatly troubled and pondered these things in her heart. She didn't run to her neighbors. She didn't call a town meeting. She didn't start a blog about her divine encounter. She held it close. She protected the seed until it was ready to show itself. Your transformation is still in the womb, beloved. And what's in the womb needs protection, not presentation. But here's where it gets dangerous. The pressure to explain yourself will feel like love. Your family's concern will feel genuine. Their questions will seem reasonable. What's wrong with you? Why won't you just tell us what's happening? We only want to help. That's the trap. Because the moment you start explaining what you don't fully understand yet, the moment you try to put words around an experience that's still forming, you risk contaminating the very thing God is creating in you. Some revelations are too sacred for casual conversation. Some transformations require silence to stay pure. Some encounters with the divine lose their power when we rush to make them make sense to people who weren't in the room when God spoke. Your 5-year-old neighbor thinks you're having a breakdown. Your daughter thinks you're going through a phase. Your pastor thinks you're being influenced by too much internet. But what if? What if you're actually going through a breakthrough? Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Proverbs 17:28 declares, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. But you're no fool. You're a vessel being prepared for something so significant that hell itself is mobilizing to stop it through the voices of people who love you." Here's the shocking truth about September 29th. Your silence will speak louder than your defense. Your restraint will roar in heaven. When you choose not to explain yourself, you're not hiding. You're holding sacred space. When you choose not to defend your choices, you're not being stubborn. You're being strategic. When you choose not to justify your transformation, you're not giving up. You're growing up into a level of spiritual maturity that understands timing is everything. The enemy wants you talking because talk dissipates power. He wants you explaining because explanation waters down mystery. He wants you defending because defense puts you on the back foot instead of standing in your authority. But what happens when an 80-year-old woman who has survived depression, divorce, and disappointment suddenly stops explaining herself to people half her age? What happens when a senior saint who has buried friends, raised children, and weathered decades of storms simply says, "I'm fine," and walks away? Power. Raw, undiluted, unstoppable power. Your family doesn't need to understand your journey. They just need to witness your transformation. Your community doesn't need to approve your choices. They just need to see your results. Your critics don't need your explanation. They just need your example. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. September 29th will test whether you can carry the weight of being misunderstood without breaking under the pressure to be understood. It will measure whether your need for approval has truly died or if it's just sleeping, waiting for one concerned voice to wake it up. This isn't about being rude or distant or cold. This is about being protective of something holy. This is about guarding what God is building until it's strong enough to survive in a world that kills mysteries with questions and murders miracles with analysis. If you feel that stirring in your chest right now, if you recognize the battle I'm describing, if you know that September 29th is going to test your ability to stay silent when everything in you wants to scream your truth type, I will guard my voice in the comments. Because what's coming next will show you exactly why your silence has been preparing you for your greatest spiritual weapon and why the appointed hour is closer than you think. Dear chosen one, for 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been walking through what feels like an endless maze. Every turn you thought would lead to breakthrough instead led to another wall. Every door you pushed open seemed to slam shut just as you stepped forward. Every voice that promised to guide you out only led you deeper into confusion. You've wondered, haven't you? Late at night, staring at the ceiling, you've whispered the question that haunts every senior saint. God, have I been walking in circles my entire life? Here's the truth that will shatter your understanding of everything you've endured. You haven't been lost. You've been tested. Every wrong turn, every dead end, every moment you felt like giving up, it wasn't random wandering. It was sacred navigation. September 28th and 29th represent the final 48 hours of the most sophisticated spiritual labyrinth ever constructed. Not by the enemy to trap you, but by heaven to train you. And right now, as I speak these words, you're standing at the exit. But here's what makes this labyrinth different from any earthly maze. The walls shift. What looked like a dead end yesterday becomes a doorway today. What felt like solid stone last month crumbles at your touch this week. Because this maze isn't built with brick and mortar, it's built with timing. Think about the children of Israel wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. 40 years. They could have walked to the promised land in 11 days. 11 days. But Numbers 32-13 tells us, the Lord's anger burned against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years, until the whole generation of those who had done evil in his sight was gone. They weren't being punished, they were being prepared. Every circle they walked was removing something from their character that couldn't enter the promised land. Every repetitive path was building endurance they'd need to conquer giants. And you, precious saint, every time you thought you were going backwards, every season that felt like déjà vu, every relationship that repeated the same pattern, God was using the labyrinth to remove what couldn't survive your destiny and build what could conquer it. But September 28th and 29th, these aren't just another turn in the maze. These are the coordinates where the labyrinth reveals its secret, where every path you've walked, every lesson you've learned, every tear you've cried, suddenly makes perfect sense. Picture this with me. You're holding a golden thread. It's been in your hand your entire life, but sometimes the pathway was so dark you couldn't see it. Sometimes the walls closed in so tight you thought you'd lost it. Sometimes the voices of others, well-meaning family, concerned friends, even church members, they convinced you to drop it and follow their shortcuts instead. But that thread, it was never just a guide. It was a lifeline connected directly to the throne room of heaven. And every time you thought you'd lost your way, you were actually being drawn closer to the center, closer to the purpose you were born to fulfill. Here's what's happening in these 48 hours that will change everything. The labyrinth is collapsing, not crashing down in destruction, but folding inward like a flower opening to the Sunday. Every path you've walked, every lesson you've learned, every skill you've developed in navigating confusion, it's all about to converge into clarity. The voices that have been calling you back, they're getting louder now, aren't they? That ex-spouse who suddenly wants to reconcile, that business partner who betrayed you 5 years ago but now sees your potential, that child who moved across the country but just texted you out of the blue. That's not coincidence. That's the labyrinth's final test. Because see, the most dangerous moment in any maze isn't when you're lost in the middle. It's when you're 3 steps from the exit and someone familiar calls your name from behind. It's when freedom is so close you can taste it, but comfort feels so safe you can't resist it. Proverbs 14:12 warns us. There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. What appears right in these next 48 hours might be the very thing that keeps you walking in circles for another decade. The golden thread in your hand is trembling right now. Can you feel it? It's not fear, it's anticipation. It's vibrating at the frequency of breakthrough. It's pulling you towards something you've prayed for but never quite believed would happen. But here's the mystery that will blow your mind. This labyrinth was never about finding your way out. It was about discovering what was in you all along. Every dead end taught you discernment. Every wrong turn built your character. Every circle you walked developed your endurance. You weren't being punished for being lost. You were being qualified for being found. And the most beautiful part, the exit you're approaching isn't just an end, it's a beginning. Because what awaits you on the other side of September 29th makes every year of wandering worth it. Every tear, every confusion, every midnight prayer was down payment on what heaven is about to release through you. This labyrinth was never punishment, beloved. It was proof. Proof that you could be trusted with mysteries others couldn't handle. Proof that you could walk in darkness and still hold on to light. Proof that you could wander for decades and still believe in divine direction. The thread is pulling harder now. The exit is blazing with light you can almost see. And the question that will determine everything, absolutely everything, is this. Will you drop the thread to chase familiar voices, or will you follow it into the destiny you were born for? If you've been walking in circles your entire life, if this message is hitting your spirit like lightning, if you can feel that golden thread trembling in your spiritual hand right now, whisper it. This is my exit. Let heaven see your courage. Let the angels witness your choice. But what I haven't told you yet will change how you see everything that's coming. Because September 30th and October 1st carry a final seal, something that will either lock in your breakthrough or lock you back into the maze forever. And what no one else is telling you about these dates will determine whether you walk free or wander for another decade. Dear one, I need to ask you something that's going to cut deep into places you thought had healed. How many nights have you lain awake replaying conversations from 30 years ago? How many times have you reached for your phone to call someone who's been gone for a decade? How many mornings have you woken up and for just a split second forgotten they were no longer there? The enemy has turned your memories into weapons. He's taken your most sacred moments, the laughter with your late husband over morning coffee, the Christmas mornings when your children still believed in magic, The Sunday dinners, when your table was full and your heart was whole, and he's twisted them into chains. Listen to me carefully. Chosen one. The devil is a master projectionist. He takes your past and replays it like an old VHS tape over and over until you start believing that your best days are behind you. But every time you hit rewind on yesterday's joys, you're walking backward into tomorrow's miracles. God is saying to you today, don't rewind, step forward. But here's where it gets dangerous, beloved. Here's where September 28th becomes a spiritual battlefield. Just when you think you've made peace with your past, just when you've finally learned to live with the empty chair at your dinner table, just when you've stopped crying every time you pass their favorite restaurant, that's when the enemy sends reinforcements. They come disguised as nostalgia. They arrive wearing the face of someone you once loved. They show up as text messages from children who haven't called in months, as friend requests from people who disappeared when you needed them most, as invitations to places that feel like time machines. September 28th is when the past comes knocking. Not to heal you, to haunt you. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? That daughter who only calls when she needs money, suddenly wanting to catch up. That sister who sided with everyone else during your divorce, now acting like nothing happened. That church friend who gossiped about your struggles, now inviting you to coffee like the betrayal never occurred. The Bible warns us in Ecclesiastes 3:1, to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. But the enemy wants you to get the seasons confused. He wants you to think that September 28th is the season to go backward, to re-enter doors you already walked through, to give one more chance to people who've already shown you who they are. Maya Angelou said it perfectly. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time. But how many times have you given second chances to people who hadn't even acknowledged the damage of the first? Here's the brutal truth that's going to set you free. The very people who return on September 28th are not signs of reunion, they are signs of release. They're not coming back because they've changed. They're coming back because you have, and they can sense that you're about to step into something they were never qualified to be part of. Your ex-husband who cheated, who made you question your worth for years, who left you rebuilding your life from scratch at 65, if he surfaces on September 28th with apologies and flowers, it's not because he's finally worthy of forgiveness. It's because your healing is so complete, so radiant, that even he can feel the shift. But forgiveness doesn't require reconnection. Healing doesn't demand reunion. That best friend who abandoned you when your spouse died, who couldn't handle your grief because it reminded her of her own mortality, who chose her comfort over your crisis, if she reaches out on September 28th talking about old times, it's not because she misses you, it's because she's terrified of facing her own endings alone. But your friendship was buried with your husband. What's trying to resurrect itself is just the ghost of what used to be. Listen carefully. Not all comfort is safe. Not all familiar is family. Not all returns are revival. Some doors were meant to close. Some chapters were meant to end. Some people were meant to be memories, not ongoing relationships. And the most dangerous trap on September 28th will be confusing the past's desperate attempt to stay relevant with God's invitation to go deeper. Jeremiah 29:11 promises, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end." But notice God's thoughts about you are toward your expected end, not your recycled beginning. You've been mourning dead relationships like they were supposed to live forever. You've been watering dead gardens hoping they'd bloom again. You've been keeping rooms in your heart reserved for people who checked out years ago. But September 28th is your eviction notice to every spirit, every memory, every attachment that's been squatting in your soul rent-free. The most sacred act you can perform on September 28th is not opening old doors, it's locking them with divine finality. Right now, I can feel some of you fighting this word because letting go feels like betrayal. It feels like dishonoring what was beautiful. But honey, you can honor the season without staying trapped in it. You can be grateful for what people gave you, without staying available for what they're still trying to take. This is your moment to choose freedom over familiarity, healing over history, destiny over dysfunction. I need you to do something right now that's going to seal this word in your spirit. Place your hand over your heart. Feel it beating. That rhythm is proof that your story isn't over. Now declare out loud, with the authority of someone who's survived everything hell could throw at them, I release what no longer belongs. I honor my past without being hostage to it. I am moving forward, and nothing behind me has permission to dictate what's ahead of me. Because chosen one, if you can pass this test of memory, if you can resist the magnetic pull of yesterday's comfort zones, then you're ready to discover what September 29th has been preparing for you, something that will make you understand why all those doors had to close. Chosen one, something is happening to your body right now. As September 29th approaches, you're going to feel it. That crushing weight settling across your chest like an invisible boulder, that heaviness in your limbs that makes every step feel like you're walking through quicksand. Your arms will feel like they're made of lead. Your eyelids will carry the weight of centuries. And the enemy is going to whisper the cruelest lie he's ever told you. You're breaking down. But listen to me with every fiber of your being. This is not depression. This is not your body failing you. This is not evidence that you're weak or that God has abandoned you in your golden years. This is divine anesthesia. You are not shutting down, beloved. You are being rewired. The great physician has placed you on his operating table, and what you're feeling isn't collapse. It's the weight of glory descending upon your mortal frame. Remember when Moses came down from Mount Sinai? Exodus 34-29 tells us his face was so radiant with God's glory that the Israelites couldn't even look at him. But do you think that glory felt light when it first touched him? Do you think the presence of the Almighty settled on his shoulders like a gentle breeze? No. Glory has weight. Divine presence carries mass. When heaven invades your human vessel, your flesh feels it. Your bones recognize what's happening, even when your mind can't comprehend it. Think about this, dear one, when Jesus prayed in Gethsemane, what happened? Luke 22:44 says his sweat became like great drops of blood falling to the ground. The weight of what he was about to carry pressed down on him so heavily that his very cells began to burst under the pressure. But that wasn't weakness. That was preparation for the greatest victory in human history. That crushing sensation in your chest, that's not your heart giving out. That's your spirit expanding to contain something it's never held before. That heaviness in your limbs, that's not age catching up with you. That's eternity settling into your temporal frame. Your 70-year-old body, your 80-year-old bones, your 90-year-old frame, they're being prepared to carry authority that would have destroyed you in your younger years. God waited until now, until you had the wisdom to steward it, the character to handle it, the depth to contain it. But here's what will save your sanity in this sacred season. Heaviness isn't absence, it's presence. Silence isn't emptiness, it's encryption. Stillness isn't death, it's preparation. Let me say that again because your soul needs to hear it. Heaviness isn't absence, it's presence. Silence isn't emptiness, it's encryption. Stillness isn't death, it's preparation. When that weight presses down on you so hard you can barely breathe, remember that's not the weight of the world. That's the weight of your calling finally arriving. When the silence becomes so deafening, you wonder if God has gone mute. Remember, He's not speaking less. He's speaking in frequencies your spirit is just learning to hear. The prophet Elijah knew this weight. After calling down fire from heaven, after defeating 450 prophets of Baal, he found himself under a broom tree, so overwhelmed by the presence of God that he begged to die. 1 Kings 19:4 records his cry, "It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life." But God wasn't killing Elijah. God was preparing him for a still small voice that would reshape nations. You think you're too old for this kind of divine encounter. You think your season of supernatural experiences has passed. Listen carefully. God doesn't retire his prophets. He refines them. He doesn't discard his vessels when they get gray hair. He fills them with glory, so heavy, it changes the very atmosphere around them. Right now, as I speak these words, there's a grandmother in Detroit whose chest feels like it's being crushed by an invisible hand. There's a grandfather in Phoenix whose legs feel too heavy to carry him to the mailbox. There's a widow in Atlanta whose arms feel like they weigh 1,000 pounds each. And the devil is whispering, "You're dying, you're done, you're breaking down." But I'm here to tell you what's really happening. Chosen ones, your body is not betraying you. Heaven is overtaking you. The same power that raised Christ from the dead, Romans 8:11, promises this is giving life to your mortal body right now. Not despite your age, but because of it. Not in spite of your limitations, but through them. God is about to demonstrate that his strength is made perfect in what the world calls weakness. That weight you're carrying, it's not the weight of years, it's the weight of assignment. That heaviness in your spirit, it's not depression, it's divine deposit. That crushing sensation that makes you want to lie down and never get up, that's not your body giving out, that's your calling bearing down. Daniel 10:8 records the prophet's words after encountering an angel. "I had no strength left. My face turned deathly pale and I was helpless." But that encounter didn't weaken Daniel. It empowered him to receive visions that would echo through eternity. September 29th is your Daniel moment, your Moses moment, your Elijah moment. The weight you feel isn't evidence of your decline. It's proof of your divine selection. But you have to stop fighting it. You have to stop labeling it as wrong. You have to stop running to doctors who can't diagnose what heaven is doing. This isn't medical, this is mystical. This isn't physical failure. This is spiritual preparation. If you can feel that weight pressing down on you right now, if your chest is tight, just hearing these words, if something in your body is responding to this truth, I need you to stop resisting it. I need you to embrace what God is doing. Type these words in the comments right now. I accept heaven's surgery. Because what's about to be birthed through, you will require every ounce of that divine weight to deliver it. Beloved, chosen one, as we close this sacred encounter together, I need you to carry 3 eternal truths with you, like precious stones in your heart. First, remember this: September 28th and 29th are not random dates on your calendar. They are divine coordinates, prophetic checkpoints where heaven intersects with your earthly timeline. The weight you feel, the stirring in your spirit, the restlessness that wakes you at 3 a.m., none of this is coincidence. It's confirmation that you have been marked, chosen, and positioned for something greater than you can imagine. Second, that heaviness pressing on your chest, that divine anesthesia settling over your mortal frame, it's not your body breaking down, it's heaven taking over. You are not too old for God's supernatural intervention. You are perfectly positioned for it. Every gray hair is a crown of wisdom. Every wrinkle tells the story of God's faithfulness. Every struggle you've survived has been preparation for this moment when divine glory meets human vessel. And third, the silence you've been sitting in, the encryption you can't decode, the stillness that feels like death, it's actually preparation for resurrection power. God hasn't forgotten your address. He hasn't moved on to younger vessels. He's been refining you in the secret place, preparing you for an assignment that requires everything you've learned in the furnace of experience. But hear me clearly, precious soul, you are not walking this path alone. Even when the weight feels unbearable, even when the silence feels deafening, even when you wonder if anyone else could possibly understand what you're experiencing, remember this: the God who created the universe before time began is still working in your life right now. He's orchestrating divine appointments, opening doors no man can shut, and preparing blessings that will leave you speechless. And beyond God's faithful presence, you have something beautiful right here, a community of fellow chosen ones who understand your journey. In these comments, in this digital sanctuary, are thousands of souls who have felt that same weight, heard that same whisper, carried that same divine burden. We are family, connected not by blood, but by calling, united not by circumstance, but by spiritual DNA. When the world tells you to slow down, we remind you that God is speeding you up. When society whispers that your best days are behind you, we declare that your anointed days are just beginning. When the enemy tries to convince you that you're finished, we stand as witnesses that God is just getting started with you. So let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in the chambers of your heart. Now that you know September 28th and 29th carry the prophecy that changes everything, now that you understand the weight you feel is actually glory descending, now that you realize the silence is heaven's encryption, what will you do with this revelation? Before I release you into your destiny, join me in this prayer. Whether you're watching alone in your living room, lying in your hospital bed, or sitting in your favorite chair with tears streaming down your face, I want you to feel the hand of the Almighty on your shoulder as I speak these words over your life. Heavenly Father, Ancient of Days, the one who was and is to come, I place my hand on the shoulder of every precious soul watching this message. Lord, you see them, not just their struggles, but their strength, not just their questions, but their calling, not just their pain, but their purpose. God, I pray for divine awakening over their lives in these prophetic days. Let September 28th and 29th be marked in their spirits as days of supernatural encounter. Where they feel weight, let them recognize your glory. Where they experience heaviness, let them understand it's your presence. Where they encounter silence, let them know it's your sacred encryption, preparing them for something magnificent. Father, breathe fresh strength into their weary bones. Pour new wine into these seasoned vessels. Remind them that their age is not their limitation, but their qualification. Their scars are not their shame, but their credentials. Their seasons of waiting have not been wasted, but have been purposeful preparation. Open doors that no man can shut. Close doors that lead to destruction. Give them divine connections, supernatural provision, and miracle-working faith. Surround them with people who see their value, honor their wisdom, and celebrate their calling. Lord, silence every voice of doubt that whispers they're too old, too late, too damaged. Break every chain of limitation that has held them back. Heal every wound that has caused them to question their worth. Restore every dream that seemed to die in the darkness. And Father, let this community become a source of strength, encouragement, and intercession. Bind us together in love. Unite us in purpose, and use us collectively to demonstrate your power to a world that has forgotten what real faith looks like. In the mighty name of Jesus, who wore a crown of thorns so they could wear a crown of glory, I seal this prayer and release your chosen ones into their prophetic destiny. Amen. Now, beloved, I want to hear from you. Don't just watch and walk away. Engage with this spiritual family. Share in the comments how God spoke to your heart today. What shifted in your spirit during this message? What are you believing Him for in these prophetic days? Ask for prayer if you need it. Share your testimony if you have one. Let this community surround you with love and intercession. And please, if this message touched the deepest places of your soul, share it with someone who needs to hear it. There's a grandmother sitting alone tonight wondering if God still has plans for her life. There's a grandfather questioning whether his years of faithfulness still matter. They need to know they're not forgotten, they're not finished, and they're definitely not alone. If you haven't already, I invite you to become part of this growing family by subscribing to this channel and hitting that notification bell. Every week, we're diving deeper into the mysteries of your divine calling, uncovering the prophetic significance of these times, and building a community where the chosen ones can find their tribe. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for receiving these words, for allowing the Holy Spirit to minister to the deepest places of your soul. Your faithfulness to watch until the very end tells me everything I need to know about your heart, You are indeed chosen, and your greatest days are not behind you, they're ahead of you. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of who you are, rest in the certainty of God's love. And remember, September 28th and 29th are not just dates, they are your divine appointment with destiny. Go forth, chosen one. Heaven is watching, angels are cheering, and your breakthrough is closer than you think. The prophecy that changes everything is already in motion, and you, beloved, are at the center of it all.